Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Welcome into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Here on Life Planning 101, our mission is to help you live life on purpose. Plain and simple. We want to empower you with good information and education so that you can make decisions about your future before your future actually happens. I think that's what they call proactive planning, right? And on the note of being proactive, we're going to have a little fun today. Our topic's not so fun. It's never fun, right? Because when we're talking about proactive planning, we're usually talking about the dangers that could occur and trying to avoid those pitfalls. But before we dive into that, I want to tell you about a toddler at a funeral. So this was a story about a mom. She's telling us about her kiddo, and they were at a funeral, and it was a relative that they were really particularly close to. And they get in the car after the funeral, and her 3-year-old had just this incredible time meeting all of their extended family. He was just so happy and said, I met all my cousins, and it was so much fun. And of course, the mom says, well, I'm glad that something good happened today, right? And the 3-year-old goes on to say, well, let's go to another funeral. And so mom had to stop and, of course, explain that in order for that to happen, somebody had to die. And so the 3-year-old sat there and thought for a second, and then responded, okay, give me a pencil and a paper, and I'll make a list. Now, you might hear that and think of there might be family members that I would put on that list, but we're not going there today. No, we're going to talk about the dirty dozen. And what I mean by the dirty dozen is the dirty dozen things you need to know about long-term health care planning. Yes. So it is Long-Term Healthcare Planning Awareness Month in November. And we thought we'd kick off with telling you a little bit about what is actually going on in the world of healthcare when you get older. You know, I know a lot of people say, well, I'm going to have Medicare, I'll be all right. Or I'll have Medicaid and I'll be all right. Well, just kind of some fine points here. So Medicare is your healthcare insurance that's funded by the government, which you may know. It does not provide ongoing long-term healthcare services. In fact, most Medicare, if you have it set up appropriately, will cover about the first 90 days if something were to happen. But beyond that, you're on your own, folks. And a lot of people say, well, that's when you go on to Medicaid, right? Well, that could be true if you want to go on welfare, because that's what Medicaid is. You basically have to be broke. Every state is different about what their rules mean around that. You're limited to so much income. You're limited to your assets, specifically your liquid assets. And so especially if you're married, it could severely put your spouse at risk for retirement. And if you can't get to those levels, virtually what they enforce you to do is spend down to those levels before you can go on a Medicaid claim. Whew, that's some light topics, right? Rather go back to the funeral with a 3-year-old. But this is important. This is important because I'm going to give you the dirty dozen statistics of what it actually looks like today. What is actually happening with long-term health care today? And the first two that I want to tell you about is the percent of chance that you actually would need care. Okay, so if you're 65 years old, there's a 48% chance. That's basically 1 in 2. Okay, almost 1 in 2 chance that you're going to need some type of paid long-term care services in your lifetime, right? Furthermore, there's a 70% chance that you're going to need some type of severe long-term health care services if you're 65 today. That's 7 out of 10 people. That is a lot. That is a lot. And people say, well, why? Why is that so many? What's causing that? I have no idea. I'm not going to go down the road. I mean, obviously, if you know me personally, you know that I'm a big health freak with my kids and believe in good diets and things like that. And I don't know if it's contributing to that. I don't know if it's contributing to other things. But I do know this. I'm going to skip ahead on this Dirty Dozen list because this was like almost astonishing. And this was some information. Oh, by the way, before I get into this. So these statistics, we've got them. They're going to be on our newsletter this week. www.kennedy-financial.com. On that newsletter, you can sign up for our weekly life lessons, and we'll have the links of where this came from because there's really some really good information behind this to learn more. So those first two that came from What Lifetime Risks Needing Receiving Long-Term Services Support Center. So you can go on and read about those. The other one that I want to bring up right now is what I mentioned before, and because this is kind of shocking, okay? This was Alzheimer's, the increase in early onset dementia or Alzheimer's from 2013 to 2017. Okay, this is the latest statistic that I could find. I don't know if it kind of got off track just because of COVID, but this is unreal. So this is for Americans that are age 30 to 64. And this was a published article from Blue Cross Blue Shield that talked about that there is a 200% increase in those 4 years of early onset dementia or Alzheimer's for Americans aged 30 to 64. And I'm going to tell you personally, I've seen it a few times. I've seen that early onset Alzheimer's, and it's devastating for a family that hasn't planned around it. And so I know this is like grim and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I thought we were out of Halloween. But this is some real stuff, right? You need to know what your risks are because you hear these things out there. You need to buy life insurance. You need to buy long-term healthcare insurance. Well, maybe you don't, but you certainly need to have a plan for it. And that's what my hope is that you'll be educated to know what these risks are to you, what this means, because we're going to get into the financial aspects here in a minute, and be able to be prepared for that. And really, it's not just about the money. This is where so many people get it wrong. And if you've listened to any of our podcasts on long-term healthcare planning, we are huge proponents for building out your full plan, not just taking care of the money. So if you've taken care of your long-term healthcare need with money alone, but actually haven't done any other planning, you don't have a plan. You just have a funding plan. And maybe that funding plan won't even work to support what you actually want. And that is a risk that nobody talks about. So when we come back on Life Planning 101 today, it is the Dirty Dozen of long-term healthcare statistics. Welcome back into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. We are talking about the Dirty Dozen of long-term healthcare statistics. Yes, it's grim, but yes, you need to know what your risks are so you can plan for them. And we're not just talking about going out there and buying a long-term healthcare policy. In fact, sometimes there are a lot of times that actually doesn't make sense. However, that doesn't mean that you can't have a plan. And if you have a long-term healthcare policy and that is all you have, then that doesn't mean that you have a plan either. So it is very important for you to understand what your risks are and that you've addressed these. And we've just got through talking about the fact that 70% of people over 65 years old will need some type of severe long-term health care services in their life. That's crazy. That's crazy, right? And so I picked The Dirty Dozen. I don't know if you remember this movie. It's from 1967, and it was actually a really good movie. There's parts of it that it's not for kids, okay? But it was a really good movie. It was actually talking about, this group of people, and it was based on a true story. I don't think it was a true story, but it was before D-Day began, and it was their job that actually kind of got D-Day on its way in World War II. And one of the taglines of Dirty Dozen was train them, excite them, arm them, then turn them loose on the Nazis, right? And so our goal today is to train you, maybe not excite you about long-term health care, but get you excited to do your planning and arm you with what you need to talk about to do so. So let's get through some of these statistics. We've given out 3.7 years. That's the average length of a long-term care stay for a woman today. All right, men, you're 2.2 years, but don't get too excited yet, because you have the longest claim paid for in long-term health care, which is another statistic, 19 years and 3 months. Eek, right? 8 years is the average length of time after an Alzheimer's diagnosis. 42%. This is the percentage of long-term care costs that Medicaid pays. It's not even half. And by the way, before I go any further, I want to remind you that all of these resources can be found on www.kennedy-financial.com. This is going to be in our weekly life lessons. It's also going to be within our weekly articles that are published there online. So make sure you go on and look at those. And these resources are great, by the way, good to go read through. And it's not just for the statistics. They have lots of valuable information in there. But let's keep going. $115,544. Well, folks, you want to stay in your home in Texas if something were to happen. That's just the basic cost, median cost, for a homemaker and health aid services in a year. $115,544. And since, we're not just partial to Texas, I thought I'd throw Montana in here. $193,336 is your cost. Yes, things are not always bigger in Texas, especially when it comes to long-term health care costs. You might want to move to Texas. Hope you like the warm weather. I hear it's been pretty hot. $116,800. This is the median annual cost for a private room in a nursing home facility nationwide. By the way, Genworth has an incredible tool. You can go on there and look. I type in Google like Genworth cost of care. And this is not an advertisement for Genworth, by the way, but they've got a great tool where you can click on your state and you can actually click on your city and you can see what those services cost. Don't be confused on the home piece though, because getting home care actually takes more, because you're going to have someone to help you take care of the home, but that you're also going to have someone to help you as a health aide, and you could have more services than that. So it does get a little confusing there when you're looking at those numbers separated, but you have to add them up together. Ooh, yes, it's painful. All right, and the last on our Dirty Dozen list of long-term healthcare statistics is 41.8 million. So this is the number of Americans providing care to a person over the age of 50 in 2020. Yes. So there's all these statistics of things that are happening now, today, by the way, but they'd probably be worse if there wasn't a family member that was helping take care of things, because that's what it sounds like. Is there's a lot of family members in this country that are sacrificing their situation to be able to support a loved one over the age of 50. And I know I've heard story after story about what that can do to a family. And I know if that were me, I would not want my family doing that. And so my hope for you today out of this show is that we're going to be able to give you a tool to use to help your family get prepared. Like I talked about, the financial piece is important and it needs to be addressed. Sometimes long-term health care insurance is the answer. Sometimes it is not the answer. That needs to be decided with your planning professional. And then I just beg that be somebody that works with you holistically and really understands your full situation, not just an insurance agent. But there's this other piece, because even if you have that funding taken care of, then there's the piece of when, what, who, how do all these things happen? When we come back right here on Life Planning 101, I want to tell you a story that we went through. And I hope this story helps you. And I want to leave you with a tool that you can leave your family that I consider better than anything that you could do in your estate plan. You're not going to want to miss it right here on Life Planning 101. Welcome back to Life Planning 101 in the Dirty Dozen of long-term healthcare statistics. If you have missed those, you need to hear them. You need to understand how dire the situation is today and what you could be facing as you age. Nobody likes to think about this, but I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something you're not going to like. But I'm going to tell you, you either decide what happens to you if something happens to you in a healthcare kind of way where you need someone taking care of you, or your family's going to do it for you. Which would you rather have? And I think that's what people don't realize, especially, and I'm not here to pick on you men, but men, you are made to take care of your family. That's the way God intended it to be. But something inside of you says, oh, that'll never happen to me. That's the worst thing you can do, because you're not going to take care of your family if you don't take care of yourself. And what I mean by not taking care of yourself is, yes, it's important to eat healthy, all those kind of things, but have a plan in place so that your family has a blueprint to be able to follow. So we learned this the hard way, and I own it 100%. We work with a family for over 20 years, and they had their funding in place and everything else, and they both got sick. And they got sick to the point that, and by the way, they were high school sweethearts, and they got sick to the point that he couldn't make decisions and she wouldn't. And she ended up dying. And they were forced to make decisions. And by the way, kids weren't in the picture. And so that made things even tougher. And we were left without any kind of levers to pull other than, to have them confined. And that's not what anybody wants. That's not what anybody intends for. And so you need to have intention with this situation. You need to have intention because there's a 1 in 2 chance that you could have long-term care services in your lifetime. There's a 70% chance that after age 65, you're going to need some type of severe long-term health care services. So again, I'm going to ask you to keep the power in your hands and to tell your family what's important to you. And we're going to give you the tool to do that. Okay? So the tool is address the questions: who, when, how, and what. Who is going to take care of you? Who is going to help coordinate your care? Who is going to take care of your finances? And who are the other who's that are important in this situation, and what are their roles? How? How is it going to happen? Are you going to receive care at your home? Are you going to receive care in a facility? Or what is going to happen? How are you going to be taken care of? Who? What? What resources are going to be there to make this happen? So is there some type of long-term healthcare funding? Do you know if it supports your in-home care that you really want to have? If it doesn't, what other resources are going to support that? There's a lot of policies, by the way, that don't. And you need to know that if you don't know that already. And what resources are going to happen as things move or progress or could progress. That's really important. So who, how, what, and where? Where does it happen? People don't often think about this, okay? This is so important. So you got kids scattered across the country. Where are you going to be? Well, I'm going to be in the town I'm in right now. Well, what if none of your kids are right there with you? Is that what's really important, or are you willing to relocate closer to your children? Well, it depends. It depends on if I have a sane of mind, if my wife's living, if all these things. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. All those things need to be answered. And if you have not answered those things, you do not have a plan in place. Your children do not have a plan in place. And let me ask you this. If you're unwell, your spouse is stressed, and your kids are busy, how well do you think that planning is going to go in the heat of the moment? Probably not at all. So I'm going to challenge you to keep the reins in your hands. Where do you prefer to be? Who's going to take care of you? Is it going to be your kids? Are they going to be the ones, wiping your you-know-what? Oh, I hate to say it, but it's true. You need to think about these things. If you haven't given thought to these things, and you haven't written them down, then you don't have a plan. If you prefer to have a professional caregiver, then, or maybe just for specific things. If you're not mobile, what needs to happen, right? Are there specific assets that need to be put towards things, right? And then the other piece, you need to consider different situations that you could be in. What if you're both living, you and your spouse, and you're cognitively strong, but you don't have a physical capability to take care of yourself? What if only one of you is living and you're cognitively strong, but the one of you doesn't have the physical capability to the self? See, the things might change. All these who, hows, whats, all these things might change depending on the situation, right? And what if you're both living and one of you is not cognitively strong? What's that look like? How do you even address that? How do you know when it's time? Well, there's a great tool that we use. We actually had the lady on the show not too long ago. It's called A Positive Approach to Care, the Living Gems, and it actually takes you through the progression of dementia and Alzheimer's. We do this when we package our quality of life plan for people, which is when we walk through all of this with a family so that we are prepared to take on whatever comes, right? We don't want it to happen, but it's there if we need it. And that's what's important. But being able to address the progressiveness of not being cognitively strong is super duper duper important. And then what if there's only one of you left and you're not cognitively strong? You can see that in these 4 situations, there could be all kinds of differences that could occur. And the best way that you can say, I love you and I really care about you to your family is to take care of your long-term health care planning and not leave it to them. See, a lot of people don't do this either because they think it's not going to happen to them, or they think that it costs too much, or they just don't want to deal with it. But not dealing with it, it really is a burden on your family. And I have yet to work with someone that says, I want to be a burden to my children. I've yet to work with someone that says that. So my hope today, out of this dirty dozen of long-term healthcare statistics, is to motivate you. To motivate you, to arm you, as they say in the Dirty Dozen, so that you can have a plan for your family if the worst of things happen. And there's no questions to be asked. Things just start happening. And remember, we're here to help. That's what we do. We're a life planning firm helping people live life on purpose. Don't forget to call us if you need us. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group. God bless you and have a great week. And be sure to tune in next week. We are going to have actually 2 special guests this month. So don't miss it right here on Life Planning 101, where we help people live life on purpose.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.